I guess, Coach, to start with, new roster, your thoughts, just sort of what are maybe 3 or 4 things you think you guys are going to be best at, are going to be strengths of the team this year?
Yeah, I'll tell you a lot more here in about a week. You know, the team gets here this weekend, so we'll start workouts on Monday. But I like the way the roster came together. I think we got great depth in shooting the basketball, which was a priority for us. I think we, for the most part, got good positional size at a lot of the spots. You know, the center were a little smaller, but every other spot, I think we got some great size there. And I think overall we got great depth, and I like the way I think the pieces were all kind of connect together. They can complement each other pretty well. So, like I said, we'll know a lot more here in the next couple of weeks, but excited to get them on campus.
And on Tucker, we saw him shooting with Basie a little bit. Like, what can he do, and when is he going to be full contact?
Yeah, for the most part, we're getting closer. We're waiting for that final clearance for the full contact, but he's able to do all the shooting, drill works, lifting, modified a little bit. But I think for by the time we get rolling here this next week, maybe within that first week, we should be fully cleared for full contact and be good to go there.
It looks like something similar to this last summer in terms of maybe not quite the same roster overhaul, but a lot of new faces. You knew you were going on a foreign tour last summer like you do this summer. How do you structure maybe what you try to accomplish week by week when you're thinking about player development, but you're also thinking about cohesiveness and chemistry, and you get the practices and the games to sort of build up to at the end of the summer?
Yeah, the nicest part with taking a trip is we get those 10 extra practices, so we can spread it out, and we'll do maybe one a week where we can get some extra film study in, do some install, that type of stuff. That maybe takes a little bit more time that you don't have when you only have the 4 hours a week. So that's the way we'll try to utilize that the most. And then you get those game opportunities, but more importantly, just some time to spend together when you got a whole new group, just to kind of build that cohesiveness on and off the floor. I think it's a terrific time for us to go do that.
Are you still looking to add to the roster, or what's your current thinking on the open spots?
Yeah, we still have a couple open spots, so we're still actively recruiting to see if there's something that fits and makes sense. And we can kind of go a lot of different directions with that. As the roster stands today, we still have those 2 extra spots. So we'll see what that plays out like. But we are still actively recruiting.
You had the experience of doing this before at West Virginia, building a team. So has that helped you this time around? And what did you learn? And what are some of the things that you were going to do and not do?
Yeah, and I had to do it my first year at Drake, a very similar deal as well, where you didn't have a lot of guys returning, so you're kind of putting a whole new roster together. One of the advantages of it is when everybody you're recruiting is bought into what kind of your vision and things, and you're not having to try to convince somebody that was returning of your vision. So that part, there's some benefit there. Obviously, the downside is every single guy on the roster is new, and the familiarity with the university, the town, everything is starting from scratch there. But I think the biggest thing is just getting them all together, getting them on the same page, and watching how that plays out in terms of roles and connectivity and things, because you don't have anything else to go off of other than, especially within the portal, there wasn't long recruitments in a lot of cases with that stuff. So for us, it's about figuring things out as we go as well, and they're figuring one another out. They're figuring out their new coaches. Coaches are figuring out each other and the new players. So, but it's also a fun process too. It's fun to see where it starts in June and where it ends up by the end in March.
You inherited Kentucky and Marquette on the schedule. You've also added Louisville. What are your thoughts on the non-conference schedule, and what are you trying to achieve in the non-conference?
Yeah, I think those are some great games for us. Terrific games regionally for sure. That's a lot of fun for both not only the teams but the fan bases, and so should present some great challenges. You got a 20-game Big Ten schedule as well. So I think for us again, it's those 3 games on our trip are gonna be important too, because you just have to play, and you got to figure some things out. The good and the bad, and learning how to play with one another. So as we go through non-conference, we're going to figure some things out in a hurry with some of those games that we have on the schedule, and then try to get ourselves prepared for Big Ten play.
What's the events like this where you can get out and meet the fans, and the fans can meet you, and you get to know each other a little bit?
Yeah, this is terrific, for myself and our staff, and we got almost everybody down here, because it seems like all we've been doing is just entertaining for recruiting and stuff, so it's nice to be able to get out and go meet some people, be able to kind of share just on a more personal level to meet as many fans and donors and things that we're excited to become a part of. So this is going to be a great event for us tonight in a lot of different ways to get out and meet so many people.
What's the latest on Goody and Leo? Just what are you hearing?
Yeah, they're still their waivers are still in process. My understanding is there's been, as you probably all know, a ton of waivers have been filed, so
right.
I think there's a little bit of a backup there. So from a timing standpoint, we don't really have a lot of clarity on when those decisions will be made. Sooner the better, but that's really out of our control. So.
What was the biggest challenge in terms of just putting the roster together? I think you had 10 commitments in 27 days, so things happen pretty fast, but kind of starting from a blank canvas, what was the biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is we want to make sure that everybody we're bringing in is what we want, not only for this year, for long term in terms of establishing who we want to be, what we want that to look like, making sure they can complement each other, on the floor, off the floor, and then also you're putting a staff together simultaneously. So trying to balance both as you're going through it, but. At the same time, not take any shortcuts to make sure that hey, we're doing this right from day one, and if it takes a little longer, then it takes a little longer. But we try to do it, as quickly as we could, but also being very smart and calculating about it.
As it relates to Luke and Anthony, obviously you don't have any control over the timing of it, but you have control over the timing of your own roster. How do you handle the Plan B scenario if they aren't given a waiver? What's kind of been your kind of approach to that whole situation, given there is some uncertainty involved with it?
Yeah, and that's why we've kind of held back a couple scholarships here, if you will, of trying to see where this process plays out for them, and then make decisions based off that. And like I said, hopefully we'll have a better idea on the timing of that stuff sooner than later to see where that all falls.
You and your staff have been out recruiting, during the spring evaluation period. What are some of the things you're looking for when you're looking at a lot of these, really talented high school guys you're looking at?
Yeah, a lot of the same stuff we were just looking for in the portal. Now it's just with the high school players. So we want guys that are about the right things, good team guys. Got a good feel and IQ, some skill level that we look for, and then again, does it fit kind of how we want that roster to look like? But the feedback's been great. We feel like we're in a good place with some of the guys that we're recruiting. We're very excited about that, and we'll continue to work very hard at putting an emphasis on the high school side of it.
Darren, the guys you brought in, it seemed like a lot of them had a pedigree of winning, whether it was being on conference champions or conference players of the year, things like that. Did that play in to what you were looking for some of your players?
It's certainly one of the factors, but it wasn't something that they had to have. Over the years, we've taken guys that maybe came from a team that wasn't as successful the year before, but it's always an added benefit. Like, were they able to help their team win? That's a great quality to have as well. But we don't make it so that's the only guys that we look at, because sometimes there's just situations where it wasn't their fault necessarily. But it is always nice when you can collect as many guys that know how to win. They're about winning, because those qualities tend to shine through pretty quickly.
Did this year versus last year building the roster with the revenue share looming, sort of the possibilities of kind of having almost like a salary cap, did that add new wrinkles to the process, and how did you kind of adjust and kind of work your way through that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, as everybody found out quickly, was the NIL piece changed dramatically in terms of what rosters we're going to take to kind of put together, and thankfully we're at a place that is very supportive and have some great donors in place and people in place to help facilitate that, and we're able to adjust on the fly as we were putting together a roster. And then anytime you're in the portal, those things can get a little tricky as you're trying to put that many guys on a roster at one time.
How do you try to learn the character of guys, trying to transfer when the recruiting window is kind of smaller?
Yeah, you have to do as much of your work as you can, and it's using your contacts, your connections with yourself, with your staff, with other people around to find out as much information you can about each individual that you're recruiting. Because as you mentioned, it can be a 2, 3, 4 week process, which is very, very soon, very quick. But for the most part, as you're going through it, you have a pretty good idea as you've been out recruiting, watching these kids, come through the high school ranks, go through the college ranks. You have a pretty good idea already on most people, and there's always somebody that you can touch that has a really good feel for what the kid's about.
What's been the most enjoyable part for the last couple of months for you?
Yeah, I think it's been really fun to watch the staff come together, watch the team come together, and now getting closer to getting on the practice floor. That's what I'm really looking forward to. But as I said before, we just haven't had a ton of time to get out in the community, other than going to breakfast, lunch, and dinner with the recruits, and then you're entertaining, showing everyone around. So watching that all come together now and getting that close to that finishing point where, okay, here's our team, here's our staff. Now let's go get to work on the basketball portion of it.
Has there been a moment when you've sensed or felt the urgency from the fan base for this program to get back to where it used to be?
I just think this fan base is very passionate about it. They care about it. They want to win. We want to win. So that's I think we're all in alignment there. That's a good thing. I always tell people you want a fan base that is very passionate about their team and that they care, and that's what we have, and we're excited to have them all be a part of that, and we have those same expectations. So we're going to do everything we can to try to live up to those.
What were the key things you were looking for as you put together your assistant coaching staff?
Yeah, I think as you're putting together a staff, is to make sure you got a lot of different areas covered, both on the floor, off the floor, recruiting, regions of the country, and experience, youthfulness. There's just a lot of things that go with it. And again, just like your team, you want to make sure they kind of complement one another and complement maybe my strengths or weaknesses, and then vice versa with everybody on the staff. So that's I love the staff that we have right now, and we're looking forward to just getting on the floor and not working.
Do you anticipate adding any other additional pieces?
Staff-wise? Yeah, there's potential for maybe one more staff member, and then as we mentioned with the players, another potential there for a couple openings there as well.
How pleased are you right now with the mix of the sheer amount of shooters you have versus bigs versus rim protection defense? What's your comfort zone on that right now?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't anticipate us having great rim protection. Like I said, we're a little undersized at the 5 spot, so but there's a lot of different ways. Rim protection isn't always block shots. There's a lot of ways to protect the rim. So, I think overall, on paper, I like the balance we have. I think there's a lot of things that we can play to and try to have as strengths. Again, that comes down to, okay, we got to take it from paper to the floor, and that's that process that starts here this next week.
Last question here.
What prevents you from being a little stronger at the 5 than you currently are?
Actually, I feel really good about the 5. I like the guys we have. I think they fit how we want to play offensively, especially. I think they have the ability to really have the ball in their hands and be facilitators and playmakers. I think we have good depth there. So, I like what those guys are going to bring, and there'll be nights that they'll be undersized on the defensive end, but there's a lot of ways to offset that. Size doesn't always determine how effective you can be as a defender or offensive player. So the right mindset goes a long ways, and I think our guys will bring that mindset.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you all.